Hello everyone, you are with the Knitting Studio in Style. Today we continue to knit the children's cardigan. Friends, if you just joined us, I suggest you watch the first part. Please follow the link below the video. And with everyone else, we will continue knitting. That's it, I have knitted these 12 rows. And girls, I just noticed that I am explaining this knitted right front panel on the left. But I think you have figured it out and understood what I was talking about all this time. I will continue to explain on the left panel while knitting the right. So, we have knitted our 12 rows. Next, we will form our neckline. Here, on this side, this is where my fastening will be. On this side we will decrease for the neckline. In every second row, we will first decrease 3 stitches. Then 3 times by 2 stitches, and 3 times by 1 stitch. In total, we should have 7 decreases, and we need to close 12 stitches. And knit upwards 14 rows, since there are 7 decreases. And since we decrease every second row, we will knit 14 rows in height. We will decrease in the same way as we did for the armhole. In the first row, we will decrease 3 stitches, and here is the loop with buttons. And here on this side we start to decrease. In the first row, 3 stitches. The first stitch is slipped onto the right needle. The second stitch is knitted according to the pattern. And we pass the first stitch over the second. Here is our first decrease, 2 more to go. That's it, 3 decreases completed. Now, knit the rest of the row in the main pattern. We have knitted the right side, we turned the work. We knitted the purl row. The last stitch in the purl row is not knitted, but moved to the right needle, the yarn is in front. And we turn the work around. In the second row, we will make 2 decreases. So, we are moving the first 2 stitches to the right needle without knitting them. And we drape the first stitch over the second one. That is our first decrease. And we make another decrease. Then we knit to the end of the row according to the pattern. At the end of the purl row, we do not knit the last stitch, but simply move it and turn the work around. Our next decrease is the third one, again, 2 stitches. Then we knit, according to the pattern, to the end of the row. At the end of the purl row, we do not knit the last stitch, but simply move it and turn the work around. Our next decrease is again 2 stitches. This will be our 4th decrease. We made 2 decreases, we knit to the end of the row according to the pattern, and again, after finishing the knit row, we move to the purl and drop the last stitch without knitting. In our 5th decrease, we will decrease 1 stitch. Then we knit according to the pattern. At the end of the row we again do not knit and turn the work around. We still need to close 2 stitches, that is, 2 techniques for 1 stitch each. In this row, we again move 2 stitches to the right needle and drape the first over the second. Then we knit according to the pattern. In the next row, we will also close 1 stitch. I will not show how this is done. I think it is clear here. That's it, I have decreased the stitches for the neckline and knitted 1 purl row. To get to the knit side, such a slope has turned out. It turns out I have knitted a total of 14 rows. That means we need to knit 2 more centimeters. In our calculations, we accounted for these 2 centimeters. We will close here immediately at the same time. That means we will create a slope for the shoulder. Let's see how many rows will come out for 2 centimeters. 1 centimeter is equal to 13/100ths of a row. How many rows will we have for 2 centimeters? The results. Here we have 3 whole 13/100ths multiplied by 2, which gives 6 whole 26/100ths of a row. It will take up 2 centimeters. That means in practice 6 rows. And since we will use 4 rows for the shoulder slope, I will now knit 2 rows straight. Then we will start making the shoulder slope. That is, we will knit 2 more rows according to the pattern. So, I have knitted 2 rows. Now, we will make the shoulder slope. We create the slope from the armhole side from here. That is, I will knit the front side according to the pattern now. I will turn the work and go to the wrong side, and we will decrease from the wrong side. Here on the wrong side, where we have the decrease for the armhole, we decrease 2 stitches in the first pass, and then 1 stitch in the second pass. We slip the first stitch, knit the second according to the pattern, in my case, this is purl, and I pass the first slipped stitch over the knitted purl stitch. Then we knit the second stitch also as purl and pass over as well. This gives us 2 decreases. Next we knit according to the pattern. At the end of the right side row, we do not knit the last edge stitch, but slip it. And here we are again, on the wrong side. That is, this is our second pass. We will decrease 1 stitch here. Slip the first 2 stitches onto the right needle, and do the pass as usual. After our last decrease, we will close immediately. We will bind off our fabric from the wrong side. We also close using the method of passing stitches. That is, we knit a stitch according to the pattern. We pass the first stitch over the second. That is, just as we always did. This is the slope that resulted, and I bound off the stitches. That's it. We finished knitting the front piece and closed our fabric. For now, it is shapeless and not as beautiful as it should be. But it's nothing to worry about. Everything will be corrected later. Everything will stretch into place. 1 front piece is knitted. So, I knitted the right front piece. But I was explaining about the left front piece. Now we need to knit the second front piece in the same way. The same thing, only in reverse. Here I have the back on circular needles. And here on the stitch holder I have the second front piece. So this will be my left front piece. This is the edge where the button placket will be. Accordingly, here we will make the neckline opening. And here, where we have the marker, we will make the armhole opening, and then the shoulder slope. Let's knit the second front piece. And after that, we will meet again. We will knit the back. Well, let's go. 2 front pieces are knitted. Now we will proceed to knitting the back. I have the back on circular needles. Therefore, I will knit directly on circular needles, continuing to knit. According to my pattern, the back will be, it will consist of 2 shelves. Here it is, its length, according to my measurements, should be 62 centimeters. Accordingly, half of the back is 31 centimeters. We finished knitting at these points, so my back. Here I have the armpits. Now we will start shaping the armholes on both sides, that is, right now on the back, on the right and left sides. We need to decrease for the armholes. We will decrease in the same way as we did on the shelves. Let's begin. In the first row, we make 4 decreases. The first one is slipped. The second one is knitted according to the pattern. And we place the slipped stitch over the knitted one. Here, I have the beginning of the yarn. Next, we knit the second stitch and place it over. That is all the same. The third and fourth in the first row we have 4 decreases. We have decreased stitches on this side. Now we knit to the end of the row according to the pattern. And here at the end of the row, we will turn the work. On the purl side, we will also decrease 4 stitches. The first stitch is slipped, the second is knitted according to the pattern. Then we place the slipped stitch over the knitted one. And we repeat this 4 times. Next, we knit our purl side to the end of the row, and we do not knit the last stitch, but simply slip the yarn in front of the work. And we turn the work. We made 2 decreases of 4 stitches each. Now we need to decrease 3 stitches on both sides. We do everything the same as we did for the armhole decreases on the shelves. 2 stitches are slipped, not knitted. And we place the first over the second. We made 3 decreases. After this, we again knit the entire front row according to the pattern, and we slip the last stitch without knitting. On the purl side, we will also decrease 3 stitches. That's it. We decreased 3 stitches, and further. Again, we knit until the end of our purl row, and we do not knit the last stitch. After that, we turn the knitting. Here, we decrease 2 stitches. Now we have made 2 decreases. We knit to the end of the row according to our main pattern. At the end of the row, we do not knit the last stitch, but simply slip it off, as usual. Here, we also make 2 decreases. And we knit to the end of the row according to the pattern. Again, we do not knit the last stitch, but slip the yarn in front of the work. Here we make 1 decrease. Next, we knit as usual in the main pattern to the end of the row. Again, we do not knit the last one and slip it onto the right needle. From the purl side, we made 1 decrease. Then we will knit to the end of the purl row according to the pattern. And we will also purl the last edge stitch. That is, we will knit it. We have finished our decreases for the armhole. Let's finish this row to the end. Well, my dears, we knit, it turns out, 8 rows of the pattern, and decreased in 4 stages, 10 stitches on each side. Let's look at our calculations. From the underarm area, we need to knit upwards 13 centimeters. Here, we calculated when we knitted the front. These 2.5 centimeters we have already knitted. Decreasing for the armhole, it turns out, we need to knit 4 whole 47/100ths, 2 and 4 centimeters. Thus, we are knitting the back. And we will not make any decreases for the neck, but will knit straight here. That is, we just need to knit the height of these centimeters. 4 whole 47/100ths plus 4 will be 8.5, and these 2 centimeters. After knitting 8 whole 5/10ths of a centimeter, we will start to shape the shoulder slope. That is to say, just like on the shelf, here we will create slopes. Therefore, we are currently knitting 8 whole 47/100 centimeters in height straight, using the main pattern like this. Be sure to monitor that each row has the same number of stitches, so that the fabric remains straight. Well, I have 14 rows, these 4 whole 47/100 centimeters, and 12 rows. These 4 centimeters mean that I need to knit 26 rows. You girls will have different figures, so, well, I think you understand the principle. Therefore, knit according to your measurements, and we will meet to knit these 2 centimeters and create slopes for the shoulders. That's it. Let's knit. Well, I have finished knitting. Now we just need to create the slopes for the shoulders. That is to knit these last 2 centimeters. That is 6 rows. So, we need to knit 6 more rows while simultaneously making the shoulder slopes, as we did on the fronts. So, let's not pay attention to our fabric being a bit squished after sewing. After blocking, it will fit the figure. Everything will be fine. According to our pattern, there's a slope here and here. Let's get started. In order to knit my last 2 centimeters now, I will need to knit 6 rows, but since 4 rows will be for the slopes. Accordingly, now I will knit 2 rows straight according to the pattern. After that, in the first row, we will decrease 2 stitches, that is, on the right side, we will decrease on the front side, and on the left side on the wrong side. For this, we will slip the first stitch. The second one we will knit according to the pattern. That is, we will do it just as we did before. That's it, I made 2 decreases. Next, I will continue according to my pattern until the end of the row. We turn the knitting. Now, on this side, we will also decrease 2 stitches. That's it, decreased. Now we knit according to the pattern until the end of the row. And at the end, do not forget, do not knit the last stitch. We simply place the yarn on the right needle in front of the work. That's it, we have made 2 decreases. Now we will do one at a time. On this side, 1 decrease. That is, we slip the first 2 stitches onto the right needle without knitting. And we pass the first slipped stitch over the second. Here is our decrease on this side. We knit to the end of the row according to the pattern. We slip the last stitch, not knitting, with the yarn in front of the work. And here is our last purl row. Here, we will also decrease 1 stitch at the beginning of the row. And after that, we will immediately start binding off the entire row. We bind off in the same way. That is, we knit the next stitch according to the pattern. And we pass the first stitch over the second. Again, we pass the first stitch over the second according to the pattern. Thus, we will bind off the stitches. That is, just like usual. That's it, I have finished the row. I made a chain stitch. And I pulled the yarn tight and cut it. So, we have finished the back. Here are our fronts. Everything we have knit is already something resembling a sweater. We just need sleeves, an edging, and to sew everything together. Let's knit the sleeve. First, we will take measurements. I have drawn the pattern for the sleeve, and I took my sweater to make the measurements. Here, my sleeve corresponds to this sleeve. That is, the same thing. Here is the area of the armpit. This is where the increase occurs. And this is the curve of the sleeve. This is the end of the sleeve. I think it's clear what I have drawn here, I mean. First, we need to know the distance in centimeters from the armpit downwards. That is, this is the distance. We measure. I have 20 centimeters in this top. But the sleeve is a bit short. I will add another 5 centimeters. That is, this distance. I will have 25 centimeters. Accordingly, and this one too. Here, I will write 25 centimeters. Then we need to know this distance. We measure, so, how we will measure? From the armpit. And up, like this. I get 12 centimeters. This distance is 12 centimeters for me. And further, I will make the binding here 3 centimeters wide. Here, my binding will be 3 centimeters. Accordingly, my total length is 25 centimeters. Without the binding, I will have 22 centimeters. That's it. We have made the initial measurements. I will crochet the whole top with garter stitch. That is, I will knit all the stitches as knit stitches. And it would be better to make a sample of garter stitch. I knitted it. This is desirable but not necessary. I washed it. This can generally be excluded from our calculation. But to be specifically precise, I made a sample and measured it. The width is 10. The height is 4. Here I will write about the garter stitch sample. Width. My width, I cast on 20 stitches. This is 10 centimeters. Again, my favorite ratio in 1 centimeter, I have X stitches. Therefore, X equals 20 stitches multiplied by 1 centimeter and divided by 10 centimeters. And this equals 2 stitches. This was my width. Now the height. I knitted 16 rows. And that resulted in 4 centimeters. Therefore, let's calculate for 1 centimeter. I have x rows. Thus, x equals 16 rows multiplied by 1 centimeter and divided by 4 centimeters equals 4 rows. That is, there are 4 rows per centimeter in height. We will start the knitting. We will knit the sleeve from the bottom. Accordingly, we will start by knitting in garter stitch. We can skip calculations and just visually check what width we want for the edging. From these 3 centimeters, I decided to knit just over 2 centimeters in garter stitch, and then knit the rest in the main pattern. In the end, I will knit 9 rows in garter stitch. That is, just over 2 centimeters. In 1 centimeter, I have 4 rows. I will knit 9 rows. And I will knit 2 rows in the main pattern. We will begin knitting the sleeve from the bottom. That is, we will start from here and knit upward. Accordingly, we need to know how many stitches to cast on initially. And for that, we need to know the width of the sleeve at the bottom. We will measure. I have ended up with 7 centimeters in the sweater. I will do just that. That is, this distance is 7 centimeters for me. Now, to know how many stitches I need to cast on. To knit in garter stitch, these calculations were necessary. Well, you can visually see again, but I will now calculate to be exact. I have 7 centimeters. I have 2 stitches per 1 centimeter in width, therefore, 7 centimeters multiplied by 2 stitches. And that results in 14 stitches. So, I will need 14 stitches to cast on. I will clarify this. We measure everything in halves. That is, we take half of the sleeve. This is our half. Accordingly, I measured that I need to cast on 14 stitches. But, when I cast on, I will multiply by 2, since I only measured half of the arm circumference. Well, I think it's clear. So, 28 stitches are needed to start knitting the sleeve. Let's immediately calculate based on our current measurements. How much that totals in rows or stitches? It turns out here we initially calculated that we need to cast on 14 stitches, or 28 total stitches. Next, after casting on, we will knit 3 centimeters. Or, as in my case, I will knit 2 centimeters. Just like that. In garter stitch, and the rest I will knit 2 rows in the main pattern. Then we will proceed with increases. Here we will be adding. I will now explain how, and how much we will be adding. But now, let's calculate. I have 22 centimeters in this distance. We will count how many rows that will be. After our binding, we will knit the main pattern. Accordingly, we will take the measurements based on the main pattern, not garter stitch. We have already calculated, this is our height. That means we need to count how many rows fit in 22 centimeters. Accordingly, we multiply 22 centimeters by the number of rows in 1 centimeter. We have already done this. So, here's our sample. It was initially written. Thus, we get the height of our rows. In 1 centimeter, I have 3 and 13 rows. Accordingly, for 22 centimeters, I multiply by 3.13 rows, and I get 68.86 rows. Well, we rounded it approximately. Thus, it is 69 rows. Here I will write down 69 rows right away. Next, Let's calculate how many stitches occupy 12 centimeters. This is our width. The width in 1 centimeter is 2.38 stitches. That is for 12 centimeters. We multiply by 2.38 stitches. This results in 28.56. And approximately, this is 29 stitches. From these 3 centimeters, I have 9 rows in garter stitch. And 2 rows in the main pattern. That's it, we have the basic information. Let's start knitting the sleeve. As I knit, I will explain what to do next. So, I will cast on 28 stitches using the usual universal method. And I will add 2 edge stitches, which will not be included in the calculations. That is, for all the calculations, we definitely add 2 edge stitches for sewing. Accordingly, I cast on 28 stitches plus 2 edge stitches. 30 stitches! I cast on 30 stitches. And I knitted 9 rows of garter stitch. Why, 9 rows? I could have knitted 8 rows. Here, I have a height of 1 centimeter with 4 rows. Accordingly, I could have knitted exactly 2 centimeters and ended up knitting 8 rows. But I knitted 9 to set up the main pattern now on the right side. That is, to make sure this side is the front. And correspondingly, here is this initial twist. I want it to be on this side. This part should be the back. And I added 1 row to make the front side here and start the main pattern with a right side row. Now, I will knit 2 more rows straight in the main pattern. So that in the end I have 3 centimeters here, so it is knitted. It turns out that we have already knitted this straight part. Next, we will start adding stitches for the sleeve expansion. Here, we will make increases. How? I made increases. I alternated every 4th row and every 5th row. This was when knitting from the bottom up. That is, I knit in the main pattern. I knit straight. I am on the 4th row. I add 1 stitch at the beginning of the row. I finish the right side row to the end on the wrong side. At the beginning of the row, I again add 1 stitch. So, it turns out we need to add a stitch on one side and on the other side. I repeat that we have half of the sleeve here. On one half, we need to add 1 stitch. And on the second half, we also need to add 1 stitch. That is, I alternated every 4th and every 5th row. I added by loop until that point, until I got the total number of loops. Here is 29 multiplied by 2. Since 29 is only half of the sleeve for us, I will now break down everything more precisely, how I calculated everything. But if you do not want to perform this part, you can basically skip it. You can visually check and rely on my measurements. If you have a similar size, you are knitting tops. Then you can also add every 4th row, or alternate every 4th and 5th row too. Or add 1 stitch on one side every 5th row. That is, 2 stitches per row, at the beginning and at the end of the row. Now I will explain how I exactly and precisely tried to figure out how to make these increases here. But it also doesn't quite turn out to be exact. But basically it works. That is, now I will divide it like this here. And I will write calculations here now, which are basically not mandatory, but some may just find it interesting to look at. So, how did I look at it? I knitted straight here. We have already knitted this part. Next, I need to make increases. I know that I need to knit 69 rows, and achieve that I have 29 stitches multiplied by 2 on the needles. First, I will calculate how many stitches I need to add overall. That is, I know my initial number of stitches, and I know the stitches I should get in the end. Accordingly, from 29 stitches, I subtract 14. I get 15 stitches that need to be added. That is, I need to add a total of 15 stitches here, and since I know that I need to knit 69 rows, I take these 69 rows, divide by 15 stitches. I get 4.6 rows here. I have approximately determined how many rows I need to add my stitches, 4.6. I took 4 and 5/10, so the first time I will add to the 4th row, the second time I will add to the 5th row in the 4th and 5th, that is, I alternated, since I ended up with 4 and 6/10 rows. That is, 4 and 5/10, since I did not get a whole number here, I assume that, in the end, after adding these 15 stitches, somewhere here, I will probably have a couple of rows left to 69, and here, I probably just need to knit straight in order. To make a total of 69 rows, well, let's knit, let's see. That's all for now. The continuation can be seen in the next part, which will come out soon. Happy knitting to everyone, and see you soon.